Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And you're listening to episode 74. And this episode, we are joined by a guest, James Johnston of Rude Ghost Games. Hi there, James. It's so nice to have you on the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm having my coffee and I'm ready to chat about games that are fun.
Well, that's good.
I mean, the fun's in quotes. It's always subjective.
I didn't want to bring that up. I didn't want to seem so sassy, but I noticed, that the fun was in quotes. And, this weekend I was thinking over that. I was like, what do they mean by fun? Are they implying something about the modern era of gaming? Are they implying about how we force ourselves to have fun in society? I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Well, the fact that we got you thinking about it means that it was a successful maneuver. No, it's that video games are video games. We're not arguing that, but people argue over what games are really games, or no true gamer, and all that kind of thing. And so that's just we make our own fun, and that's the important part.
And so I think now is a great time to first let James introduce himself a little bit. So James, you're a part of Rude Ghost. You are specifically the developer for Puzzle Makeout League. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with games, Rude Ghost, and the new game that's coming out?
Yeah, sure. So like most of us, right, I've had a long storied history with games, both with games with stories and without stories. I always loved video games and didn't really think I could get into them, but in college I actually met up with a couple guys, went to school in Boston, home of PAX East, and we started, I started, much like the Penny Arcade Expo, I basically tried to jump on the coattails of all these fabulous game programmers and play the Robert coup to their Penny Arcade empire, as it were. We made a couple bucks here and there. We made a splash, much like you'd skip one stone into the ocean. But eventually, after doing indie game stuff for about maybe 5 years, with another group. Me and my teammate Brett, we kind of made our own group called Rude Ghost. We'd worked on projects before, but this was kind of to be the new home of all of our crazy projects. First one being Puzzle Makeout League. So we worked on a game called Thief Town, which we had at PAX, which is a multiplayer. I call it a multiplayer backstabbing party game. We call it, the genre is backstabbing adventure. So that was a game we'd worked on before, and we'd actually just ported to Switch as kind of like a warm up. It makes us feel, like really like a AAA official studio, right? It's like the guy who did Persona, right? He like kind of left the Persona team and made his new team, and he was like, all right, well, first everyone's like, oh, new RPGs, like first we're going to remake Catherine. And you're like, we didn't need that, but good
okay.
Good on ya. And I mean, that makes, now that we do that stuff, it makes sense because, it was our first Switch project and everything. But so we did this Thief Town Switch port, which has been doing nicely. And it was, a hit at PAX. Multiplayer games always great there. And then we were showing off Puzzle Makeout League, which is our big kind of adventure game, and what it is if you couldn't, so what we always like to joke about is Brett named Thief Town, which if you've seen anything from Thief Town, you play as a bunch of kind of bandits in the Wild West, and if you actually look closely, no one steals anything, and you're in the middle of the desert. So Thief Town, there are no thieves, and there isn't a town. So that was Brett's name.
Very, very. It's an allegory, or
Again, yeah, it's meant to keep you up at night. You're meant to think
right, exactly.
And turn it over until it's polished like a gemstone.
Right.
On the other hand, I named the game Puzzle Makeout League, which couldn't be any more literal. It is a mashup of a picross or pixel puzzle game and a dating sim where you date superheroes. And the idea is you play as this superhero in training named Pixel Girl. She has the superpower of Picross puzzle solving. That's her superpower, is that she's so good at it that she can see all of her life's problems like pixel puzzles, as we wish we all could sometimes.
Yeah,
and
right.
she dates other puzzle superheroes, also, themed after other puzzles. You can date a chess puzzle hero. You can date a crossword-themed superhero, a Sudoku-themed superhero, or Sudoku, whichever you prefer. And then Pycia or Pycia, you can date a literal giant jigsaw puzzle who is an alien from the puzzle planet. So little bit of comedy, a little bit of romance, lots of puzzles, hyper literal name. What more could you ask for? Release date, please don't ask.
That's fair.
And we won't. No, and it is a very fun game. And I mean, even that literal title, it's very evocative of like when you literally translate a Japanese title, whether like an original game title or the anime title. You're like, oh, it's such a cool title. You translate into English, and it's like it just literally is Pixel Puzzle Makeout League.
Yeah, I saw a tweet, I think, from the there's this other Picross adventure game, right? This kind of Ace Attorney game. I think the English title is Murder by Numbers, but then
Yes.
the director, I think he speaks Japanese, or he definitely tweets in Japanese occasionally.
Okay, yeah.
And he tweeted something, and I was like, oh, what is this? Are they doing well in Japan? Because I think they launched in Japan too. And I hit like that little like Google Translate thing on Twitter that doesn't always work, and it was like Super Puzzle Murder Adventure World, and I was like, oh, it's just like the most translated like ridiculous title.
You're not going to get that confused. Okay. Yeah. I like that.
So the game Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, we're not going to ask the release date, but I am excited to talk about the game because I, as someone who is not a Picross player, had played Picross for the first time playing your game and had quite a lot of fun. However, my co-host is a Picross, I think I told you this at PAX East when we met, James, but is a Picross aficionado. It turns out he played it at the last time you guys were showing the game and had played the demo before.
Oh, really? Was that at MagFest?
Or it must have been. It was at MagFest. I was trying to remember which convention it was that I played it, but I definitely remember walking around and demo areas, and it was like, oh, it's a Picross game with dating sim elements, and I was already in the seat.
That's awesome. Yeah, I guess we had maybe passed like a business card or anything, because that was this year, right? MagFest this year.
It must have been MagFest this year, yeah.
Okay, because I was going through the the list of you guys' previous episodes and checking out what kind of topics you guys have covered. And I think you did both MagFest 2020 and 2019, and 2019
That's
was
correct.
the first time we had ever done a public showing. So it's really only been a little over a year since we started showing this to people. But I'm really glad you checked it out. MagFest was amazing reception, and it's a great con as always.
It really is. Yeah, agreed. And so, well, I mean, I do have to ask, as I guess the Picross fan here. I mean, in games you get a lot of mixing up of genres and throwing things together. Did you start wanting to make a visual novel that you then put a puzzle on top of, or did you take the puzzle and go, well, we want to give more of a story and more of a fun element there?
Yeah, sure. So I think all of it, right? Anyone who likes Picross, it just comes from that love of the puzzles. It's such it's like, well, I don't know. I've never done it before. I've done a little sewing, but I've never done knitting. I imagine it's what people who knit feel like, right? Where it's like, look, this is not the most difficult thing in the world, but once you get into it, right, you just kind of like unfold your brain, right? It's this relaxing Zen experience to solve these puzzles.
It's very satisfying.
It's addicting. I don't know how these people can sell it. It should be illegal. It's a drug.
Agreed.
But
I've absolutely gotten rid of and re-downloaded games so I could just redo the puzzles.
I wish I had time for that. Making a Picross game was supposed to break my Picross addiction, and yet now I feel like I'm back on the horse. But yeah, so really the idea, right, was I've been talking to a few friends that I worked with on this game, people I'd known since college, and I keep forgetting that they had said like, oh yeah, you had this idea back in college. You were talking about this 6 years ago. I was like, I didn't
man.
realize I'd just been turning this over. But the idea, right, was, I mean, the Picross puzzle has obviously a pixel puzzle element, a pixel element to it. All the art is pixel art. And so it's kind of like a no-brainer that you would think, oh, well, it's pixel art, so it looks like something, therefore you can theme something around it. And there are some games where I actually had a discussion with someone about this at PAX, is, regardless of the quality of the game, a lot of these kind of Picross games on the phone have good puzzles, right? Now, maybe they don't have the best touchscreen support, or they try to do like 100 by 100 puzzle on your little iPhone. That's tough to do. But some of those games I noticed kind of try to say that they have a story, and they don't really, which is fine. I just wish they said they didn't have a story. They have like kind of a loose theming, which is okay, and it kind of adds to the puzzles in a way. But I really was craving this kind of honest, like, this is a story-based Picross game. And so I thought it was something that was kind of within my means to tell it. Back in the day, I wanted to make it like this kind of serious game, which was more puzzle focused. In the demo, right, Pixel Girl will actually react to what's happening in the puzzles. We kind of have some line she says like, oh yeah, filled that one in. But she also has lines where she's reacting to what's happening as you fill in more squares of the puzzle. And that was going to be the original game, was going to be kind of this serious, dramatic, moody, I was in my early 20s sort of game, right? I might have been 20 or 21. So this was like it wouldn't have been great. And so I thought, well, I don't want to make this serious and not fun for anyone. So I thought, right, is what's the most important to me outside of the Picross stuff, and it's stuff that I've seen at cons and chatting with fans at MagFest and stuff, is that Picross is sort of like this it seems like a way of life for a lot of these fans. I had this old Russian guy come up to me at MagFest, and he was like, look at this. I was like, look at what? And he showed me his phone, like by his pocket, like a holster, and he had this app where he had beaten like 3,000 puzzles. He was like, I did the whole app. I did it. And I was like, oh my God. So really what came from that was, people, I love playing Picross, so I should make a Picross game. But then it became this sort of like, I should make it about people who love to solve Picross as well. And so that's where the idea of like making it a superhero game and making it, you play Picross, but also it is a story, but also the story is about someone who plays Picross like for 8 hours every day. So I wanted to make a game, the theming around that especially, not just it's puzzles and a story.
What I think it's really interesting also is, so you play as a character in the narrative. A lot of dating sims will allow you to create your own character or, mess around with, generated stuff. Was it always the idea to have a character that you're playing as, or did you start with other things before deciding on Picross Girl?
Yeah, it's important to the story, like I said, that she is a character who is obsessed with Picross. And
right.
There are some games where you play as you. It's like the little text box, like the little character name box says you, and you're like, hey, it's me.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of Persona, right? I think they named the main character of Persona 4 you, like you, I think. And it's like, oh, yep. All right, I see that. But what we wanted to do, with this game is I wanted to make a character that, there's kind of, a couple, there's a couple ways to do a dating sim, right? You could be you and then go down different paths. You could do the very literal kind of sim where it's like, okay, go to the gym, get stronger, right? Like ask people out. This one we wanted to kind of say, all right, this is more of a, it's like a romance novel, right? It's a romance story. And we wanted to give people a character that was not them, so they could kind of, the goal is not to make them be like, I am Pixel Girl. It was more like, okay, this is someone that I'm seeing because she's bouncing off of so many characters. And I think I wanted to make the distinction important to say, not I am this character, but I am reminded of myself in parts of this character and the other characters.
Sure.
I think is important. I think the cast is not this sort of suave, right, like Otome game, like slam their fist up against the locker and hit on you kind of cast. There's sort of like these lovable weirdos and kind of losers, right? They have the power of crossword puzzle solving, which will not stop a train from hitting a building, or right. What does that mean?
Right.
So the idea is, you're supposed to kind of connect with them if they're a little awkward, if they're a little strange, because I would like to think that people who are interested in this game are in the best way, a little awkward, a little strange.
We ourselves are strange and unusual. And as you said, you made it a little more about people who will obsessively do these puzzles or who love doing these puzzles. So even if we don't necessarily see ourselves as Pixel Girl, we see ourselves as someone who also loves completing the puzzle. So yeah, you've already created that entry point for everyone. So yeah, we don't have to be her to root for her.
Yeah. One interesting exercise I wanted to do as well was I did a cyberpunk game a few years ago. I kind of mostly wrote the story for it and kind of did the promotion for it. And that was a lot of kind of brooding, descriptive kind of, you are you in that game, right? In the traditional sense that we just mentioned. But there was a lot of sort of internal monologuing and thinking things over and kind of, considering the problems with the world and everything. And it was a little too much in your own head. So a goal I wanted to set was something great about like Ace Attorney and some of those other visual novels is that when you think about it, there's not really any narration text, and maybe Phoenix Wright thinks to himself during an investigation, but there's a lot of talking. So I wanted to present this game as something where pretty much everything is a line of dialogue. So that was, and then this character does this. It's more like, oh no, I can't believe they just did this from the perspective of a character. So
very cool.
So I have to imagine that we talked a little bit about your formative years and how you've always been into games and you weren't always looking to get into gaming per se. Are there any games that you think have influenced your development style or your want to get into gaming? Obviously besides Picross games, which clearly there is a connection to, but are there other sides of the gaming industry, especially in the classic era, that kind of inspired you to want to make games with your own narrative?
Yeah, I actually did a panel at PAX on a little bit of this topic. So this game, something that we're kind of revealing in interviews such as this and kind of being coy about it is there's a big mixed media element to the game. We didn't show too much of it, but stuff that we do is mixed, right? The game is very much like traditional kind of visual novel 2D art with obviously the puzzle graphics, but we also mix in a ton of weird stuff. We're going to have glitch art in the game. We have a scene where you go to a museum and we actually painted the paintings that you look at for a comedy bit.
Nice.
We're hiding a RuneScape parody in the game, and we're doing some live action video stuff too. And I did this panel with Kyle Seeley, indie developer of Emily is Away, the AOL simulator game. And then Luigi and Zyba, who are the developers of Kind Words. And we were talking about, it was kind of an open panel about how to put the real world kind of into indie games, right? How to adapt the real world, whether it's literally remaking AOL or, asking people to create content for your game. And so my big thing was when I was very young, you don't realize how influential these sort of things are on you, but I used to play a lot of, I've been watching Let's Plays of it again because of this panel, but Star Wars Rebel Assault 2, The Hidden Empire.
Oh, man.
You're in good company.
And not the PS1 version. I'm talking the original 1995 CD version. I think I accidentally scratched the disc, so we had to get my uncle's copy. I was obsessed with this game. Because it was I guess for anyone listening that doesn't know, this was I think it was the first Star Wars thing that they ever used the costumes for after Return of the Jedi. It was
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was like it was a not very interesting kind of rails shooter arcade style game. I wish they had it's like that Star Wars arcade game, right? I think is it just called Star Wars Arcade?
Yeah.
Yes.
Star Wars Trilogy Arcade.
Star Wars
the one
Trilogy
with,
Arcade, which is another amazing game, but it doesn't have mid-1990s full motion video clips in it.
It doesn't show, Sega CD quality FMVs.
Oh yeah, where it's like already letterboxed like on your tiny CRT monitor.
Yeah, all 15 pixels of that video.
Yeah, so I would say that's about as far back as I could think of being a insanely influential game just on my person, is just like this weird blend of FMV and game graphics. I don't know. It stuck in my brain for years, and I didn't realize until later when I started thinking back on it. Another sort of retro game that I didn't get around to till later, but was not Mario's Picross on the Game Boy, which was like America got that. I think the world wasn't ready for Picross yet, or at least outside of Japan.
That was my introduction. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I never actually had that as a kid, but I played a lot of the, DS era, because that's when they actually started, I think releasing them again in America. I don't think there was any other American Picross game in between like DS and original Game Boy.
I don't think so either. Not in America now.
Yeah, but what I was craving was I heard it was really import friendly, but there was a sequel to Mario's Picross that we didn't get called Picross 2. And it stars Mario still, but it also stars Wario. And what's super interesting about this game is that it is not a story-based Picross game, but the kind of overarching plot, and they made world maps for it, is Mario is an archaeologist, right? I think they based like Mario's archaeology outfit in Mario Odyssey on like the Mario's Picross version of Mario. So he's like exploring tombs and like going into like Egypt and like uncovering, puzzles in like stone slabs. But then you switch to like a harder version of the game where he plays Wario, and Wario like walks into a bank and like does graffiti of Picross puzzles on the wall, which is very strange, but like it's enough of a theming where it really made me, I think that was also something that really made me consider that you could make a kind of Picross game like the one I'm making. So that one was super import friendly too. If any Picross fans are listening, I got it on eBay for like $8.
Oh wow.
It was really cool to see such a bizarre game like from like early or mid 90s.
Yeah, I actually found a copy of it like 2 weeks ago at a bookstore here in the city for like $10 in box. I'm very excited to start playing it.
Yeah, and the puzzles are good. Again, it's like, it's not like a story based, there's no superheroes, but it's just enough to make you kind of think that over.
But you're right. It is a stringing together of puzzles to make a story. It can happen.
Definitely. And then I guess those are some classic ones, but recently I've been really enjoying, or over the past few years, there's something about, I guess I've been playing a lot of games by Yoko Taro, who's a very, very bizarre kind of game director, but he has a human element to a lot of his games that I really like. And I think he gave me a little bit of the courage to add in twists and turns into a game, because I've never really, directed a sort of, it's a full novel, right? It's a hefty game, so
yeah,
kind of giving me the strength to not only write down a novel with a co-writer, of course, but to kind of put that human element in and then make it present it in a way that makes sense to make it a video game.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, right, that's the goal. It's got to make sense as a video game. But also, I feel like now more than ever, what's considered a video game is so vast, right? There's so many games now that are pure narrative that maybe have minor mechanics. I'm thinking of like What Remains of Edith Finch, like games that are mostly just there to tell you a story. So you can kind of loop in a gameplay loop or a loop of any kind of however you want. I'm curious with Pixel Puzzle Makeout League. Obviously, we're not going to ask you the release date. I know on Steam it says summer 2020, so we'll go with that for now. But there's always a lot of...
I'm sorry, I'm only teasing about that. It'll be this year though. It will definitely be this year.
That's amazing.
Cool.
Something I wanted to ask is, and I think we talked about this briefly when I met you at PAX East. I am a Switch obsessive. anyone who's a listener of our podcast is taking a shot, because me and Geoff mentioned the Switch a lot. And I know
love it.
And I know Thief Town is on the Switch, which, by the way, I've played and I love. I love the cackle that the thief makes when you start the game is just kind of the perfect soundbite. But what I'm curious about is, since you have a game on the Switch already, is there intent to put Puzzle Makeout League? I'm trying not to trip over the title every time I say it.
Is there an intent? Cadence as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
I love that logic. That's perfect. But my curious question is there other platforms in the future? Of course, I'm sure that there's a lot that determines that, but is the goal to put this on multiple platforms besides Steam?
Oh, yeah. I believe we properly announced it. I need to go through and make sure all of our marketing is all our ducks in a row. But we had been working on a Switch version of the game for about maybe 8 months, 9 months before PAX East. We just weren't announcing it. We just kind of wanted to make a little splash. I mean, a literal little splash, as we are humble indie developers. But yeah, what's funny too. I actually have a funny story about this. We started the game as a game jam for the last of a jam called the ILU jam, which was supposed to be the I Love You jam. So it was started by some game developers who really love dating sims. And I think another kind of big, I forget what, but I think another kind of major visual novel came out of like the first one. But we made a game called, again, it was like, I want to test this idea out. Game jams are fun because, you prototype stuff. We'll see what happens. And the game was actually called Picross Makeout League because I thought this name will get people to play it. And it got Gita Jackson at Kotaku to play it and give a nice review, which was like, all right, well, I mean, not just because, we got a write-up on it, but, this random person who has no relation to me likes it, we should go all in, right? We should develop this. And so we just kept that name Picross Makeout League because we just thought it'd be fun and funny. It was a hilarious title. And what we found, I did some research, right, was Picross as a term, right? Obviously, Nintendo makes Picross games. Jupiter being part of Nintendo, I think, or partner with Nintendo, makes Picross games. But the thing is, Picross is trademarked, but only in Europe and Japan.
Wondering about that.
In North America, yeah. If you go on Steam or if you go on iOS, there are a bunch of games that just are called Picross. There's a game that everyone talks about, which I think is all right. I always have trouble with touchscreens, I think. I'm not really a mobile, iPhone game player, but there's a game that everyone talks about called Picross Luna, which is like, people say is like a really good iPhone game. I gave it a little bit of a shot. If you want to check it out.
I should check it out. I'm kind of with you on the phone touchscreen thing. Like, my first touchscreen experiences were the DS. If I don't have a stylus, I'm a little upset. Konami released a Picross game on iOS and Android, and that was the only time I really got into it. But
I tried that Konami one. I just think it's me, right? It's not them, it's me. I don't know what it is. I have so much trouble with touchscreens.
Oh my God, yeah, it's that kind of thing. And if you're somebody who does a lot of Picross games, you're like, I'm better than this. No, I didn't meet you. Get so frustrated.
Oh yeah. So we kind of realized like, oh well, if we're just gonna release this game, this kind of goofy game, we can put it out on Steam in America as Picross Makeout League. Woohoo, right? And then later on, we actually met up with at PAX. We weren't Rude Ghost. We were SkyMap Games booth, our publisher, developers of Bacon Man, and they helped. I think they just helped release Real Mist onto Switch. I just saw them doing
nice.
limited run games like physical edition and stuff. So they're our friends, and they do some great work as well. And they actually, we were chatting with them, and it kind of turned into this thing where like, hey, we've been working on this for a while, and I've always tried to keep it fun and goofy and no expectations, right? Just because. Just game dev, you should try to be having as much fun with the hard work, because otherwise you go crazy. And then we found out, man, we're in a position where like they could help us get onto Switch, and Thief Town released in Europe. I mean, we could do Picross Makeout League in Europe, and maybe eventually in Japan. And so that was the thing, was we changed the name of the game to Puzzle Makeout League just so we could be cool with everybody, but because of the fact that we were able to get on Switch. So last year we started Rude Ghost as an official company. We kind of moved Picross Makeout League to our new company, to Rude Ghost, and we changed the name, and we had to redo the logo, and we got a new logo, and so it was a lot of changes last year, but that's where we came to both the name Puzzle Makeout League and coming to Switch. So right now we're planning on coming to PC, Windows, Mac, and Switch. And obviously I always wanted to get on Switch, but we didn't know the best way. Bugging publishers, talking to people left and right. So finally we got on there. And obviously, I mean, you guys know, if it's not on Switch, it's not a real game. I'm just kidding. But it would be more of a real game. But it feels
like that sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, what's hilarious too is, I mean, you see all these, right, like heartfelt posts by indie devs on Twitter, right? I mean, any developer on Twitter that's like, oh my God, my game is finally on a Nintendo platform, right? I mean, I feel like because Switch opened up, right? You can publish a lot easier on Switch. I mean, it's still tough as heck, but you see these developers, right? Like, I used to play Zelda on the NES when I was a kid. Now I'm on the eShop. We, like idiots, decided to, well, not like idiots, go on a lovely trip to Japan, which was amazingly fun, right after MagFest. And then we set our Thief Town Switch release date for like the week after we got back. So we finally released on Switch, and I'm like, I'm too tired and stressed out from managing this launch to enjoy the moment. Oops. But we always wanted this on Switch. It was a long journey to get there for sure, as I just explained. But now that we're there, it feels like it was meant to be. We were supposed to be on Switch and PC.
Awesome. That's excellent. Yeah. And I mean, for me, as like I said before, and to surprise of no one listening right now, unless they came through a different source than our own feed, Geoff and I are obsessed with the Switch. And I think for me, part of it is the indie availability, right? Like, the reason my Steam library is out of control, and the reason that's a running gag that's universal to most gamers who have a PC, is because of the accessibility. And I think that the Switch having an accessibility level similar to Steam is why my Switch library now is starting to resemble my Steam library, with a ton of games, because they're on sale, or they just look really good, or, you know, there's something that I wouldn't expect to find on the Switch. You know, talking about visual novels, there's a game called, I think it's called Coffee Talk, that I might have never, ever played since I only recently started getting into visual novels. But because it's accessible on the Switch, and the Switch is kind of pushing it a little bit, I was like, oh, maybe I'll play this. And there's a demo available, that kind of thing. Like, that kind of increased accessibility. Have you found that kind of availability is what helped Thief Town get some notice on the Switch?
Yeah, well, I just want to say about Coffee Talk is I definitely think that, I mean, Coffee Talk, especially along with Pixel Puzzle, these games, I'm not going to say the story is all fun and roses, but it's these sort of like, right, cozier kind of games you can cuddle up with, just do so well on the Switch. Coffee Talk, right? It's that game where you're like a barista, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, you could just sit in bed with a cup of coffee and just curl up and play that. So, you know, I think that's great for this kind of revival of a lot of these kind of visual novel kind of adventure games. So that's why I really love the Switch. Now the Thief Town Switch port, obviously the game is meant to be on Switch. You know, we always wanted it to be on a home console, and we wanted to have one of those games where you can play. Yeah, well, I love the idea of just taking the one half of the Joy-Con. I feel like that was the best thing with the Switch. Anytime you're around and you've got your Switch and a friend shows up, a friend materializes next to you, you could just play. You could just play Thief Town,
like they do.
When they grow out of the primordial ooze and fully form in front of you. You could just play Thief Town. But the problem being, right, is that there are so many good, not even so many good indie games on the Switch. It's all of the indie games are on the Switch, right? All of the good ones. It's an
embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. And a lot of other kind of random strange games on the Switch too. You know, I follow this this gaming website I usually read, Gematsu. They do a lot of Japanese gaming news, and they'll post like pretty much any kind of press release, right? Which is good because I'm flipping through and I'm seeing like Final Fantasy remake stuff and all this, but they post these games that are like, I saw this one game that was coming to Switch that was like, it was basically like a It's basically like a softcore kind of like Japanese porno kind of game, and I'm like, this is on Switch, and it's like, but in a way, like, you know, we have to compete with the great indies and then like these weird games and like everybody in between. So Thief Town, you know, it's kind of the story's always the same, is that the Switch, you know, we kind of released this a couple years ago, back when Steam was like, if you were an indie and you hit Steam just right, things went pretty well, right?
Yeah.
But now things are, you know, not to say the competition wasn't tough, but competition's, you know, insane now. And I'd say the competition was always insane because you always have these insane game developers. But now you have even more insane, you know, crazy, insanely good game developers on every platform. So the only thing I think you can really do, not just on Switch, but is just be on as many platforms as you can be on, right? I don't think we could just release this on PC. Maybe we could just release it on Switch because Picross is so popular on the Switch, but you kind of need to be everywhere and just say, look, because that's the thing. I have a Switch and I really love my Switch, but I also find myself like kind of craving more of a like sit down experience with like my PS4 Pro or whatever, because it's sort of like the Switch is great, but I'm also like, I'm still regularly playing like, I busted out my DSi like a couple weeks ago and was going through like the Castlevania DS games and stuff. So like, I have so much handheld stuff that like sometimes I do just like to sit in front of the TV and like play a proper console game. That's like, you know, big, beefy. Like now I'm like, oh, well, what about good graphics? I need some crazy graphics. I've become the opposite of what I was. But just because I have so many options, it's sort of like down the road, I think we definitely want to release, you know, no promises, but, you know, it would be great to launch Pixel Puzzle Makeout League. I mean, the goal, right, would be we do well enough, right, where we kind of recoup the money and then we can kind of put that money to porting it to other platforms, just so it's like, look, anybody can play it on any platform. Switch definitely, and we're hoping that Switch will help promote us in some way. You listening, Nintendo?
Yeah.
Give us a hand. But I find that, you know, the Switch is maybe being on the Switch is important, but it's more important to just be available everywhere, and that's where you can kind of find your success. Thief Town was on PC, and we launched on PS4. And we found that, they kind of had their own different markets and different, you know, like sales and stuff helped them out. So Thief Town's doing good on Switch, and I think sales will also help. But then again, people put their game on sale for like 10 cents on the Switch. So like, I don't know about that, you know?
Right. I've always wondered about that. Like, how is that helping?
Yeah, well, it gets them to the top of the best sellers, I think.
Okay.
So that's what I think people will commonly do is if I guarantee you, if you look at the Switch bestsellers right now, you're going to see like 3 random games and you're going to be like, why are these on here? Not that they're like, you know, of poor quality, but it's like, okay, how are these outselling?
What got them up there?
Yeah, how are they outselling Smash Bros? Like, no offense,
Right.
I would
Yeah.
think Smash Bros would be like the #1 seller or whatever, or Animal Crossing, right? But it's like, how does this game that I like to think I'm looking up indie games all the time. I've never heard of this indie game. How are they on the top? And it's, I think, because they, you know, a strategy which works is to put your game on sale for super cheap. So there's all this crazy stuff you could do to like promote yourself on Switch.
Wow.
We just don't know. We're just going to keep riding it through and see what happens with Thief Town. But, you know, again, getting on Switch 2 was kind of an adventure anyway, so.
Well, it's funny, you bring up modern consoles, and I actually wanted to ask, you know, to shift away from Pixel Puzzle Makeout League for just a little bit. What kind of games are you playing yourself now, whether they inspire you to make games or not? But, you know, you mentioned your PS4 Pro and your Switch. Are there any games that are out right now, whether they're new or not, that you're really invested in or that you're really hooked on?
Yeah, I actually just got my first really proper win in Apex Legends last night.
Congratulations.
I actually screamed at about 11 p.m. I apologize to my developers / roommates. I think they were all awake, but yeah, I've been unwinding a little bit with one of my friends playing Apex Legends. Just because I'm not afraid to say, you know, I adored Call of Duty Modern Warfare story. I think that first game is super great. So those developers, right? Titanfall 2 is something I want to play, but been playing a little more, trying to play a little Apex, kind of log into an online game. I was the kill leader, so that's pretty great.
Nice.
But yeah, I actually was keeping a list of games that I had beaten this year so far. I've been trying to move away from kind of just going crazy on games and playing a few more important games. Which I did not take my own advice, because I like to unwind by playing games that, like, my friend makes fun of me and says that there's like the James zone, or any game that's in like the 65 to 80% Metacritic score is like my kind of game.
Amazing.
Yeah. So as someone who developed an indie game, not Thief Town, but that Cyberpunk game I worked on, I've been saying this a lot actually to kind of keep myself humble as I finish this new game, is playing a cult game with a Metacritic score of 68 is way more fun than developing a game with a Metacritic score of 68.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but I've been playing a random selection of kind of older and middle of generation games. I don't know if middle generation means anything. I don't know why I just said that, but I just beat Sonic Unleashed on the PS3. I kind of always wanted to play that. The soundtrack's bumping. It's not really that great though. Sorry, Sonic team.
So that's like a half a good game, right? Like, my favorite thing about it is like the running sections as Sonic are some of the tightest, best 3D Sonic levels ever made. However, the Werehog stuff is like, if you took all of the features out of God of War, you would have that, which doesn't make it bad inherently. It just makes it kind of boring.
Yeah, not only that, they literally have the tightrope or like balance beam walking sections from God of War in a Sonic game, which is insane.
Yeah.
There is a mod for Sonic Generations on the PC that just rips the great Sonic only levels from Unleashed. So like, that's
nice.
great. You know, if you have Sonic Generations on PC, you can get that free mod. People like remade the levels and they look great. But you know, I'm a Sonic Colors. I'm a Sonic Colors fan. I'm a stan of that game. One of the best first games of the 2010s. You know, I think Sonic games, maybe not Unleashed, but Sonic games have a big, or at least the adventure games had a big effect on my mind as a child. Just the ridiculousness of it. So I think Sonic Adventure 2 informs a lot of my ridiculousness in game development.
Fair. Well, here's my James Lipton-esque question, I guess, on this. And I mean, you've been talking about, you definitely you go back and you play some older stuff, you play the newer stuff. What is, if you had a single favorite console, what is it, and what's your favorite game on it? Doesn't have to be your favorite game of all time, but
you know, I think about this all the time. I'm thinking about this way too much.
You never can think too much on this question.
Yeah, really, you know, it's got to be either. I feel like with just the breadth of content and the options for everybody, it's got to be either the Wii or the DS, and I think I probably would say the Wii, just because it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like Xbox, but they had the downloadable stuff. They had the weird motion controls. You had multiple Zeldas, multiple Marios, weird stuff from everybody. And I gotta think, oh God, what's my favorite Wii game? I mean, I just made this I should have said like the CDI or something where there's only one game you want to play, right? Like
yeah, right.
There's just so many Wii games. Ugh.
It was one of those frontier systems where suddenly everything was possible, so everyone tried everything.
Yeah, that's why I love the Wii U, just because it has such a focused kind of Nintendo's all-star library of games. Like, most of the games are amazing, but the Wii, so many highs and lows. I don't know. The one game that just jumped to mind that I really adore as like a kind of cult game is The Last Story. You guys heard of that game?
Yes. Sakaguchi's game, yes.
Yeah, with music by Nobuo Uematsu. So yeah, it was this really bizarre, it's like action RPG with like Metal Gear stealth elements and the voice cast from Xenoblade Chronicles. So everyone has these like, you know, like, I mean, we all know like the Ryan time stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to tell, like, Xenoblade has its like serious moments, but it is definitely like a feel good kind of adventure game.
It is.
The Last Story is a game where like there's like this really miserable British shopkeeper, and he like takes you into this dungeon and you're getting chased around by a giant floating coffin, and people are like doing the like, what a bunch of jokers. They're like cackling at each other. Character designs by the guy who did the Nier and Drakengard character designs. So like, it's this insane cult game that like I went to Japan and every copy of that game was in every store for like $5 or like 500 yen. So I don't think anyone in Japan loved it, but it's just
what a shame.
It's just this amazing cult game that I'm not sure how many people got, because it was that Operation Rainfall, right, where like we didn't get it in America, and then we did get it in America, but it came out kind of late. So
yeah, anyone who would have snatched it up had already moved on by that point. Yeah, it's weird.
Totally. So again, the James Zone. Actually, I'm gonna look up what this Metacritic score is on this game right now, but
to see if it fits into the James Zone.
That's the thing. It almost always works out. It's alarming.
Well, something I noticed with like Metacritic scores and a lot of review scores and the rubrics that publications make is if a game ends up there, like if it's a 7 or 7.5, they'll be like, it's not a bad game, but it's a specific kind of game. So it will appeal to, like, if you're somebody who likes rhythm games, you'll love this, but this isn't going to convert anybody. If you love driving, whatever it is. So, yeah, it makes sense that, like, yeah, the James Zone, I think is a good place to be finding games.
It's a solid 80, which is higher than I thought it would be. But that's so interesting too, right? Is something that I have been thinking about with Puzzle Makeout League and future projects is, yeah, I mean, you kind of like poke fun at reviews that are like, if it's like a Mario game, well, I mean, everybody loves Mario, but if it's like some, if it's like a Mario game and it's like, well, if you like Mario, you will not be disappointed here. And it's sort of like, well, I know that, but, I would love for games to be like, hey, if you don't like Picross or if you don't like my genre, this could get you into it. I can pull you in another way. Like,
right.
That's what the Wii was, right? The Wii was like, all right, I just bought a Wii for, what was it, like $200, I think? When it came out, it was like super cheap. It was like...
It was something like that, yeah.
I just bought a Wii to get Mario Galaxy, but now there's like games about... There's like Trauma Center where I'm like doing surgery, or there's like games where I put my Wiimote on a box and I slap the box. It opened up the possibility for a lot of people... Or like the Dreamcast, right? Where it's like, I bought this thing, there's like fishing stuff, and there's RPGs, and there's a game where you talk to Leonard Nimoy as a fish. All these experiences that kind of widen the surface of gaming,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like I would have never bought a sports simulator game. And I like sports to a degree, but like Wii Sports... There's never been a game like Wii Sports, and I don't think there ever will, because I don't think it'll work anywhere else. I think Wii Sports is this unique moment in time, and yes, it's the highest-selling Wii game of all time because it was packaged in with the game. But be that as it may, like, systems don't always do that anymore. Nintendo always used to, and the return to that for the Wii was kind of revolutionary because, again, it was a game everybody played and everybody liked, and no one probably would have gone to buy it separately, although some did. But the fact that it was a pack-in got people who would never play that kind of game to play it and have fun with it because it was so easy to pick up and play.
Yeah, what's so funny too, right? Is I don't think, did Wii Sports Resort get packaged in with anything? I don't think it did, right?
I don't know if it got packaged with any systems, but it might have.
It might have been packaged with a Wiimote, I feel like.
I think that was Wii Play, right? That was the mini game.
Oh, that was Wii Play. That's right.
Well,
what
I think is interesting too is Wii Sports Resort is actually the third best-selling Wii game. So
yeah,
it wasn't packaged in, but it still sold so well. And yeah, so that's great, because that's what some people always say is like, oh, because it's packaged in, it was popular, but people had to go out and buy Wii Sports Resort, and they clearly did. And yeah, I think that Wii Sports is like the most popular, or it's not the most popular. Well, it was very popular, but it's like the most important game of like the 2000s. Honestly, I really think it was like the experience, like even more than like Minecraft. Well, it was like this game that kind of got people to experiment and widen their horizons. Older people and people like us who are used to playing like Dark Souls and everything, would just check out this cool sports game.
I think also like the Wii missed out on an opportunity to be even more popular. Like if it had come out, I mean, it would have been outdated 5 years later, but like if it was really popular during the streaming generation, and not to say people don't stream the Wii now, but like if streaming had been built into the Wii in a way, I think that would have changed the market for that game, because it would have expanded that community, right? Like people watch stuff on Twitch because they want to feel a part of something, even if they can't necessarily play it themselves or don't want to play it. It's something like the community around the Wii would have really blossomed, I think, on streaming, especially if it had been integrated.
I definitely feel like it would have resulted in way more broken TVs than it already did, because people would have tried even dumber things for views.
That's probably true.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what I think would happen.
Although
that's totally
I
fair.
feel like every Nintendo console, something happens. Like, remember when people were like licking their Switch cartridges because they were
vividly.
they were coated with like whatever solution to make kids not want to eat them, and it's like, well, I've definitely seen a clip of someone on Giant Bomb like licking Switch cartridges. So
yeah,
people
that's true.
never learn. People will find some way to hurt themselves with fun Nintendo products forever.
Gaming never changes.
Well, James, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fun and Games. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Before we wrap up, I would love for you to tell folks on the internet where best to find your upcoming game, yourself, Rude Ghost. Like, give them the pitch. Give them where to find me on the internet.
Yeah, as it says on our press kit that I wrote in 5 minutes without thinking about it, I am part of Rude Ghost, and we make rude games for rude teens. That will not change. We've sent out official press releases with that on it because I can't be bothered to change it. So if you want to follow our indie game adventures, you can follow at Rude Ghost Games on Twitter. We're just Rude Ghost as a company, but we, some guy who started Twitter in like 2009 is sitting on the name Rude Ghost.
Of course.
And of course his account is locked and he has like 4 followers. That happened with our last game company too. We need the Twitter names to be released. But you can, at Rude Ghost Games, you can find us there, tweeting about game development, Pixel Puzzle Makeout League updates. I just did a big update on like where the story's at. We're like closing in on the end of the story, and it's a hefty one. You can also check us out on Steam right now. You can wishlist Pixel Puzzle Makeout League on Steam, and that is if you go to our website. I love saying this. Our website is picross.love. We got a custom domain for our Picross dating
really
sim.
Good.
So and that'll take you right to the Steam page. Which is great. We were just talking about this on Twitter, is sort of like, even if you want to get the game on Switch, wishlisting us on Steam just helps us get a bigger, kind of push through Steam. And like I said before, launching on everything is great. So like if people see us on Steam, but they want to buy us on Switch, as long as they're seeing us, it don't matter. And then you can find me on Twitter at Beautiful James. Yeah, that's clever. Yeah, I keep stealing other people's names.
Nice.
I'm not complaining. I want that Beautiful Joe remaster collection. Like, what are we waiting for? Just
Kamiya said he wanted to make Beautiful Joe 3 when he was at PAX East. Actually, this is the funniest thing. I ran into Hideki Kamiya in the morning on Thursday at PAX East. It was like right before the hall opened. He looked like me. He was just right. What I mean is, he looked like just some poor confused indie developer wandering outside his booth, like looking around at all the sites. And I was like, this guy just looks like, I mean, technically he is an indie developer, right? Because the studio is not published by anyone now. So it's like,
It's true.
He just looked like this like kind of overwhelmed game developer. I was like, hey, welcome. Don't get freaked
You're one
out.
of us.
Welcome to Boston. But yeah, you can find me at Beautiful James. And I think that's really it.
Amazing. Awesome.
What else could I promote? You can find me on MySpace. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, none of us really deleted our MySpaces.
I actually made a new MySpace when Justin Timberlake bought MySpace. They like rebooted it. They rebranded it, and I made one, and I couldn't convince anyone to join. So my new MySpace has not been deleted, I don't think. So find me on new MySpace.
Nice, excellent. Well,
the new AR experience.
The new AR experience.
Our
new
space.
Our space. There it is. Boom. Button on it.
It is scary to me, James, how well you fit into this show. So we'll definitely have to have you back. Maybe if I ever need to replace Jeff because he died in the zombie apocalypse.
I would go down quick.
You would.
No,
We
thank you
both
guys so
would.
much for having me on. This was a blast. This was a great chat.
And of course, loyal listener, if you enjoyed this show, please tell us what you think. If you're into the idea of a pixel puzzle dating sim, please go check it out. Let us know in the comments or somewhere on the internet what kind of genres you'd like to see mashed up. You know, this is all about mashing up two genres that make an even two great tastes that taste better together. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You, of course, can find everything that we do at certainpov.com. You can join our Discord server, which has a perma link on the website, and join in the conversation. Please go follow all the things that James said and check out this game. If you have even the slightest curiosity in it, I can tell you after playing the demo, it is definitely worth it. And this is coming from someone who has never played a Picross game before this one. So there you have it.
And as a Picross fan, I can also say I'm very excited for when this comes out. So please check out Rude Ghost, check out what James is making, check out what they're doing. It has been so nice having James on this show. Let us know what you think, folks, because as always, this is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it.
If you have anything negative to say about me or my interview, you can just DM me directly. Don't bother these guys. You know, just bring it on me.
I thank you for taking that heat off that. Yeah, thanks.
Jeez, wow. Not all heroes wear capes, but those that solve Picross do.
Hey, we have another button on it.
There we go.
There you go.
Well, with all that being said, I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I am Matt A.K. Stormageddon.
And happy gaming.